Right, so week one is behind us, week two is upon us. I trust you're watching this nice and early, way ahead of time, so you can prep. If you are sort of skating just under the radar and watching this possibly on Monday and you guys are meeting tomorrow, I trust this isn't on the same day. But regardless, I really would recommend that you send your group members a text. If you haven't created a WhatsApp group on the first week, that might be a good idea to do now. People will probably trust you enough that they won't feel in your face. But you want to be giving everyone a text message just going, hey, thanks so much for joining us last week. We're really excited about this journey. I'd love to hear what you've been thinking through the course of the week, if anything, about this new strange idea of letting people be free and only controlling myself. This week, you're going to be talking about how to build connection with people. And so you might want to just mention something like that in your text message. Great to have you last week. Looking forward to hearing what you've thought. So excited for this week, Wednesday, or whenever you're meeting. We're going to be looking at the concept of getting better connection with other people. I think it's going to be fascinating. A text like that will serve you well, particularly if you end with, please let me know if you're coming, because they'll get your text, they'll feel all guilty, they'll want to say yes to you because they're still powerless people, they haven't figured out that they're free. You're going to use that to your own advantage. They're going to say, yeah, I'm coming, and then on the night when every other excuse suddenly starts floating across their mind, there's that little bit of extra social pressure for them to return, which is good, because we want them to get into the swing of this stuff, and week two is a big week. Week two, we start to talk about this idea of how fear can creep into relationships, and there's distance that is created. And if every one of us were to think carefully enough about this, we could probably think of a relationship where even if there's been a lot of goodwill, even if the other person is a lovely, lovely person with great intentions, it could be your parent, it could be your sibling, at some point, a level of managing distance has crept in. I know of married couples who spend their lives oscillating closer and further away from one another because the two of them haven't quite been able to figure out that you just get to be you and I get to control me and I'm going to stay loving towards you regardless. They haven't learned how to really communicate and build connection properly. So they've ended up kind of tolerating one another. And sometimes they treat each other well and sometimes they treat each other badly, and they've got no strategies for how to get their needs met. All of the stuff that our course is going to take us into. And so lovely people in seemingly loving relationships can still end up managing the distance between one another, because you can hurt me every now and then and you can disappoint me every now and then. You would do very well to have thought about some examples from your own life so that you're ready to go. Because as the video grinds to a halt and you then kick off conversation, question number one is, have you ever seen or been involved in any relationships where connection has been lost and fear has crept in? Chances are you're going to need to be the first person to come up with something. So you have possibly an example from your own life, not something massively intense where you bring up really hardcore things. Not that we don't encourage you being really vulnerable with your group. It's just that if you set the self-disclosure bar so high that everyone else is intimidated to follow it, it'll end up being a monologue, and no one else will follow after that. So you're probably better off using a slightly light-hearted example. Something from fiction might help you. So some great movie characters that you've seen where they end up in these kind of powerless dynamics. I think of the Dunphys from Modern Family. If you watch that show, I know not everyone's a big fan, but there's this great example of two people who are essentially keen to be in a good relationship, letting each other down and throwing kind of relational grenades at one another every now and then, because they're just not quite sure they can trust each other. If that doesn't make sense to you, then think of some other relationship where you can see this example of me having to control you, because if I just let you do whatever you are going to do, I'm scared that might end up hurting me. That's the first half of the conversation, but the second half of the conversation is the one that you should probably prep yourself for more, and that's when we talk about love languages. Love languages are the strategy that we have for building connection, for getting some love into you, which is going to drive your anxiety levels down so that you stop behaving so scarily, and we can end up back in conversation with one another. We have to know what our love languages are. They're probably not obviously biblical. I think that they are in Scripture if you look carefully. The point is they work. And anything that helps us to understand the way we love and receive love doesn't need biblical backup. We know we need to love each other and we need to love each other well. So if this tool helps us, it's a great place to start. The 5 love languages they have helpful names, but they are often a little more complicated than the names might sound. So words of affirmation, it's sometimes helpful to understand some of the coloring in of that concept, because it might just sound like all you ever have to do is pay me compliments. I'm a words of affirmation person, and I know that it's a little more complex than that. When you are critical and negative, even your body language is enough to get me feeling anxious. Even if you're criticizing someone else, Even if the tone of sarcasm and nastiness isn't directed at me, it still hurts me because that's my love language. It's very helpful for you to understand some of the nuances to all of the different love languages. I'm fascinated by the fact that quality time is not really about the time, it's about the focus of interest. So if you're a quality time person, what you're actually asking for is for someone to show that you are interesting to them and that your interests are interesting to them. So those nuances make a world of difference when you're trying to help people figure out what their love languages are. So between now and whenever your group is meeting, watch every YouTube clip you can find entitled The 5 Love Languages, possibly with a safe search on, I don't know, but you never know what might happen. The point is you want to have as many different ways of describing each of the love languages as you can arm yourself with, because then when someone's going, oh, I don't know what I am, I don't know what I am, I don't know, then you get to give him some great, well, how about this? How about that? Let me describe this physical touch thing a different way. Let me describe this gifts or acts of service a different way. And the more different angles you have at describing the same concept, the more likely you are to get that hallowed moment where the person goes, aha, that's me. That's what I love. And then your people are well armed with a game plan for building some connection with others and being able to communicate their needs to the people who hurt them. See, I've made a little hint for you here after question 2. Have you ever felt a person in your life needed to be treated like a spitting cobra? Ross in the video has that forked stick analogy where you've got to hold this thing. You can't let it out of your sight. You can't let it too close. You have to just kind of keep it on a short leash until you can figure out what to do with it. How often is that true of relationships, right? So the question goes, have you ever been in one like that? Have you ever had someone treat you in a way that's made you nervous? Your love languages are a great clue as to what's going to hurt you the most. As I said at the beginning, if you use cutting, sarcastic, thoughtless words around me, that's going to make me want to treat you like a spitting cobra. Once I've wised up to what my love languages are, I'm then wised up to why it is that those people seem so scary to me. Oh, it's because of the way they speak about others. Great, I can now communicate to them. Listen, when you talk like that, I get that I probably don't understand your intentions. I'm not here to judge what you're doing. I just need you to know that that kind of joking freaks me out and makes me feel a little anxious. Suddenly I'm having a powerful conversation, helping someone else work out how to meet my needs. And if they refuse to, I can put limits in place and all those other good things. So, love languages, that's what you need to go and swat up on, get as clear as possible about what those concepts are, and have as many different angles on describing each of the concepts as you can so that your people can be on the same page. Happy prepping, enjoy the convo. God bless.